Welcome to the Adult Child of Dysfunction podcast, where we untangle the past, rewrite the present, and reclaim our future. I am your host, Tammy Vincent, and together we will break free from old patterns, heal wounds, and create new narratives. Are you ready to transform the effects of your dysfunctional past into your superpowers? Are you excited to get back in touch with your true, authentic self? If so, then hit subscribe and join me weekly on the Adult Child of Dysfunction podcast. Here we will learn from experts as well as experienced thrivers how to turn our trials into smiles while living our most authentic and joyful lives. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Today we have with us Babs Walters, and she is an advocate for women that are just wanting to find their voice. She has done all kinds of amazing things, and we're going to let her tell you about some of that. But before we get started, I do want to kind of throw out a little bit of a warning here, or just some soft words, in that some of the things that we discuss based on Bab's unfortunate experiences sometimes may be a little triggering or a little upsetting to someone. And we never want to do that here at Adult Child of Dysfunction. My biggest goal is to help you get through some of the things that happen in life, but also do it with a safe and comforting space so that you never feel unsafe. So if you need to pause, if you need to step away, if you need to come back with it, 100% understandable, and give yourself that grace. Do not be upset about it. Just know that we're here for you. And if you have any questions, you can obviously reach out. But we did want to just throw that in right in the beginning, just because we don't ever, like I said, want anybody to feel unsafe. So, welcome, Babs. How are you? I think she's cool. First of all, she's on here because she has my same last maiden name. So that's cool.
Maybe we're related. That could be possible, right? It's not
Where are you
that
from?
New York.
I'm from New Jersey. So
Actually, the original Walters were from New Jersey in my family.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Whereabouts?
Trenton.
Oh, wow. We had a lot of family in Trenton for a while. Who knows? Maybe we're related. That would be so cool.
That would be fun. Yes.
So anyway, so we're here talking about whatever because first of all, tell people what you do because this is absolutely amazing to me and kudos to you.
Well, you know that I have a new book coming out, Tammy, in just a matter of a few weeks. It's my memoir and the story that I promised myself when I was 11 years old that I would write. So writing and marketing the book has kept me pretty busy. I'm a jazzercise instructor, a late in life jazzercise instructor. I think that movement is very important to healing. And I think it's important for our just health and well-being. So music makes me happy, and I'm grateful to be able to do it. And I have 12 grandchildren. So I have a very busy life. We live in Florida, and it's a wonderful place for people to visit. So we had 9 weeks of company this winter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's been fun.
Where in Florida are you?
I'm in Southeast Florida,
Okay.
just a little bit south of Palm Beach.
Okay, I'm in Merritt Island.
Okay, so we're not that far apart.
Not too far apart at all. So
Mhm.
12 grandkids. Wow, that's absolutely amazing. Um, I'm I was picturing you doing jazzercise and me trying to do jazzercise, and I blew out my knees 5 months or 2 years ago, five ligaments. So I haven't really gotten back into the dancing thing, but people when they're pregnant, they always say you can't do this, you can't exercise, you can't do this, and I'm like, man, bodies are so resilient. I mean, my water broke with my first son while I was teaching step aerobics. It was like
Wow.
up, step, and then whoops, gotta go. So I totally understand and love that you value the power of exercise.
Mhm.
So, so you're on a podcast called Adult Child of Dysfunction because you do help people that have been through, I just say the muck and kind of come out on the other side. So talk about some of the things that honestly, like what inspired you to go for this exercise to heal?
Well, I think like probably everybody who listens to your podcast, Tammy, my story does not start with me and my family. It started generations before. And I think that that's one of the keys to understanding dysfunction is that if it's not healed in one generation, it becomes trauma even in the next generation, even if the same things are not happening. So I like to explain to people that my parents met in a reform school for Jewish juvenile delinquents. And it was very unusual for there to be a reform school for these incorrigible kids. But the people who started the school felt that with immigrants coming over from Eastern Europe and the difficulty they were having in acclimating and getting used to a new language and a new environment and lifestyle, that their kids were getting into more trouble.
Mm.
So the people that started this school had two separate campuses, one for the girls and one for the boys. And my parents were both 15 when they met there, and they were sent there because they were supposedly troubled kids, but also because they both came from divorced families.
Mm.
And in the 20s and 30s, that was not as common as it is today. Actually, it was like 100 years ago.
Right.
Um, my dad had built a bomb in chem lab in school, and he was suspended because of he endangered people. And he just made a decision that he was too smart to go back to school, smarter than every teacher there. I mean, after all, he built a bomb, right? The school decided that not only did he have anger management issues, but that he was also truant. And in those days, being truant was enough reason to be considered a juvenile delinquent.
Mm.
My mom was found making out with a boy under the stairwell in their apartment building. And well, even though this sounds like a Netflix miniseries, um, it was a person of color, and that really frightened her mother, who was could barely speak English, definitely couldn't read English. So she got sent away for being promiscuous. And while they were at this special school on two different campuses, they somehow managed to become pregnant.
Mm.
And in New York, you couldn't get married underage without parental permission. So they ran away to Baltimore. And as luck would have it, I ruined it by coming before they could seal the deal. Um, Shortly after my father got drafted, it was World War I. And the people that make decisions in the army decided he would make for a good sniper. And they trained him to kill with one shot. So here
Wow.
you have this guy who's angry, who doesn't fit in, who's being trained to be a killer. And of course, when he comes home from the service, what does he find? My mother has replaced him. She has another man in the apartment. So that's just to give you an idea of what the beginning of my life was like. This was their dance. They managed to stay together 72 years. They were married
Wow.
72 years. Um, as they matured, they became less and less violent and promiscuous, but my entire childhood was clouded by that. And for me, escape in my life, the only place that I could fully leave what was happening was in books. So I would read to the point that people could be talking to me. I could see their lips moving, and I wouldn't hear a word they were saying because I had escaped already.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
And
that,
for people listening, that is a very, I was an avid when I hear people go, "Oh yeah, I read a book last week." And I'm like, "Last week?" I'm like, when I was a kid, I was reading one book a day. Like there
mhm.
was no, and that was kind of, I look back at it now and that was my escape. That was my dissociation. That was my cut from this, and I have this world and I have that world, and it was very peaceful in my book world.
Mm. Yeah, I felt that these were how families were supposed to live. Mine wasn't living that way, but I lived in that fantasy that someday I would have this picture perfect family. Obviously, that didn't happen right away, but more than the escape, I was looking for guidance. I was looking for something that would show me, give a name to what was happening to me. And I used to, I was entitled to free lunch at school because we were below the poverty level. And I would sneak home instead of getting my free lunch. And I would sit and read for an hour and then go back to school. And one day when I was reading an encyclopedia, because there was nothing else to read in the apartment, so I started reading encyclopedias. After the Incas of Peru and incense, I found the word incest. And that's what gave me, I think, a legitimate understanding of what was happening to me, a legal understanding. But that definition didn't explain what it felt like, what my father said that he would kill me if I told anybody,
Right.
um, the beatings that had preceded it, both of my mother and my sister and I. So I made a decision that day, Tammy, and I said, someday I'm going to write a book, and some other little girl is not going to feel as alone as I did in that moment to discover that incest was sexual relations between two people too closely related by blood to marry. That said nothing about being an 11-year-old child who sex education for me in those days was a black and white film of the birds and bees pollinating flowers. I
Right.
mean, we've come a long way. We've come a long way since then, but um, it made zero sense to me. I didn't want to marry my father,
Right.
and I didn't know where to turn. Now, it's taken me 7 decades to write this book because a lot of work had to be done in between, a lot of work. So I stand here before you as somebody who shines light in dark places so other people can find their way a little faster than I did. And I'm grateful for being a late bloomer, even though it took me this long to get here. At least I'm blooming. But I don't want to minimize for people who are going through this type of domestic violence or child sexual abuse that it's a straight and easy path. Healing is a journey. It's not a destination, and it takes as long as it takes. And
Yeah.
maybe there is never a destination.
Well, I always say there's no stop sign. There's no like, oh, if I can get to that point, everything's good. I've dealt with it all. I've buried it all. Whatever it is, that you're trying to accomplish. There is none of that because we're layers. And I
Mm-hmm.
truly believe that God unravels those layers as we're able to handle them. So you're going to get as much as you can handle right now, and then you're like going along and you're like, great, doing well, and then there comes another layer. Well, let's deal with that. And it's just constant growth, constant. But how old were you? You said you were 11 when you read that encyclopedia. And what is the name of your book?
Facing the Jaguar, a
Mm.
memoir of courage and confrontation.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Is the jaguar something that was symbolic as a child to you, or
It actually was. It's kind of interesting that you asked that question. It's very insightful. I, in order to escape the pain and the threat every night when my father would come to me, I closed my eyes and squeezed them real tight. And in the black, I saw myself running in a jungle being chased by a jaguar.
hmm,
And I always knew I had to keep moving or the jaguar would catch me. And the only time I could open my eyes and let go of the breath that I was holding is when he finally left the room. I had never associated that jaguar with anything specific, but when my publisher read my manuscript and she saw every time that dream showed up, that she said, this is what she called a through thread or a theme. And I had never even realized that she pointed it out. And that's how we
mm,
got the name.
that's really interesting. It's funny too that there's definitely, I mean, something that symbolic. There has to be, if you picture the same thing. And it was a dream, and it was just what, or was it when you were more dissociating, like squeezing your eyes and just praying that it would
I
stop?
was fully dissociated, fully.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because I've had a recurring dream, and it's not similar at all, but it's actually a very violent dream, but it's having to do with vampires. And I've been having the same dream since I was 6.
Ooh.
And I know I've had so many therapists say, "Well, do you want to like unlock that?" I'm like, mm-mm. And that is the one thing in my world, because even just what the dream was that I mean, I won't get into the graphic details, but it had to do with my father. And it was basically this vampire chasing me, and my father standing there, and the vampire basically taking a piece of glass and telling me I had to eat the piece of glass or he was going to kill my father.
Oh.
And it was a dream. And I literally, I'm 56 years old and I have it still probably once a year. But my husband will go, "Oh God, did you have the dream?" Because I will wake up, I'll be sweating, I'll be sick to my stomach, I'll be shaking. And, but it was like when I was little, I had the same dream and it wearing the same clothes, wearing everything. And all my therapists would always say, "You really ought to unpack that." And I'm like, "Oh, I don't think I want to deal with that one." So
It
it's
seems
amazing
kind
what
of
our
simple.
minds,
It seems kind of simple to me. You were being asked to hurt yourself to protect your father.
hmm that's exactly, I mean, that's what I took from it. And
Hmm.
then, and my father suffered, my father was an alcoholic his my whole life, but I never had one bad feeling or towards him or anything because I just felt like he was such a tormented man. He was fighting his own demons, and sure enough, he had been, abused by his uncle for years. And I found out all that later, but that was, yeah, it was really interesting. But that those recurrent dreams are tough.
Well, they tell a lot, but you have to. I didn't draw the association that she did. Somebody who reviewed my book said that we all have jaguars, we all have demons, we all have these monsters, and I don't know why the jaguar came to me. It just did.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe because it was black. Jaguars are all black, right? They're the all black ones.
Except the one on my cover is spotted.
Oh, okay. Well, probably so it shows up better on your
Yes,
cover.
yes.
But well, I'm excited to read the book. I mean, that's pretty
Thank
cool.
you.
It comes out in June, you said?
June 17th. It's available for pre-order right now. Any place that you would order a book online or bookstore or library.
Sounds good. And we're not gonna end it here. Tell the audience or the listeners or whatever you want to call them, um, the people listening, what are some of the things that you did? Like, did you go to therapy? What are some of the things that you did to heal?
Okay. Well, I made a lot of mistakes. So, I mean, I'm sure this is not what you want me to tell the listening audience, but I think that we reach a point in our shame and guilt that we are attracted to similar things and unknowing, I'm on my third marriage. I got myself into some relationships that were less than supportive of me. And of course, I brought the mess with me. So I was the common denominator and all that. I spent 45 years in therapy. I call myself a self-help junkie. There isn't a book or a webinar or a course or a technique that I wouldn't try because I know that I'm going to get value out of all of them. I think that what was really helpful, and of course I'm looking at it as a Monday morning quarterback, was the
Mm-hmm.
writing of the memoir. Um, I, I think I might have told you this when we spoke the first time, but I tried to write this when I was in my 40s, and the professor in the class that I was taking told me to go home and forget about the book, that even War and Peace had some peace in it. My book was so angry and so full of hurt that it would not have been the book that I wrote this time. And I give a lot of credit to uh, somebody whose book I read, Adult Children of Immature Parents.
Mm-hmm.
And it gave me a whole different perspective. This is Dr. Lindsay Gibson, a whole different perspective on my parents. So, towards the end of my memoir, I do some research into the stories that my parents told us. And I found out that both of my parents had big problems way before they ever ended up in that reform school. And in being able to see them with less anger and resentment, I've been able to forgive myself more.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if by giving grace to them, I have more grace to heal myself. And lastly, I started this group called the Family Secret Keepers. And this is an opportunity for people who have family secrets and who carry that weight and that burden with them, um, to find a way to let go of some of that heaviness and that burden. On my website, I have anonymous secret no more postcards that people can post. I have a checklist of how to tell when you're ready to tell. And every place I go, I encourage people to find their truth and to choose a way that'll help them heal and bring that truth forward. So it's very rewarding to me, and that's part of the healing. If you would have told me that writing this book was going to be healing, I just thought I had to do it, you know?
Hmm. Well, and even just journaling, I tell people that one of my biggest things of how I healed was just journaling. You're just getting it out of your body. I mean, I'm sure you've read the book, The Body Keeps Score,
Mhm.
and everything, every event, every thought, every time you're criticized, it's all stored inside of you. And so like just writing can get part of that out. I mean, it doesn't do everything, but I equate a lot of my healing to just the hours and hours and hours I would journal. And sometimes I would burn the paper after I would journal something. And sometimes I would throw it in the river. And sometimes I would leave it. And I going back and looking at my journals, like you could tell some of them I was crying when I wrote. And then
Yeah.
when I did inner child work, I would write letters to myself, my younger self. For years, I did that. And I still kind of do that today in a way. But I think that, if you can't, you got to get stuff out.
Right.
And I tell people, I love that idea. What's it's called, the family secret keepers, because the more you keep that bottled up inside, the more it does not just mental damage, but it does physical damage. I mean, they've realized now the science behind just inflammation, and that, when people have arthritis and stuff and they're like, oh, well, that's just a physical thing. No, inflammation is caused by a mental stress just as much as a physical stress. So it's like, getting people to write, to dance it out. I love that you do jazzercise because I mean, animals at their most primal instinct, when they're stressed out, what do they do when they're done? They shake. So sometimes us just shaking and just flailing and moving is enough to just get some stuff out.
I've seen some people who dance like that, Tammy.
Oh, I
And
know. I dance like that. Zumba, I'm like, what? My daughter and I would do Zumba, and it was like we were never. And I was a dancer, which is funnier. Like now I just move, and I'm like, it's okay. We're burning calories. We're moving. It's good. But just to get that out of your body because it stays and it eats you up. But I love what you said too about the forgiveness thing, because so many people, I deal with a lot of people that are going through like a 12-step program, whether it's Al-Anon or AA or whatever it is, and they get to that forgiveness part, and so many people get stuck on it. And I'm like, then let's reframe what forgiveness means. But like you said, I look at them differently. Like you had some empathy. And
Mhm.
you can't do that when you're going through it. But when hindsight's 2020 and you go back and you look and you go, wow. I mean, like I said, I never had hard feelings for my father because I felt like he was so tormented. And so was my mother, but she was way more brutal. So I felt like I was justified in being angry with her, if that makes sense. You know,
Well, remember, you were a child and I was a child. We're thinking now as adults. We didn't
exactly.
think this way when we were children. I had tried to forgive my parents multiple times because I'm a big believer in the Ten Commandments and, honor thy mother and father. How could I be so angry at them? But the truth is that I was angry at me. I was holding myself responsible. I thought I was a bad person. That's why these things were happening to me. I thought that I should have run away from home and I should have done this and that and the other thing. I should have done something to get away from the brutality. And I was a child and I was a scared child. And until I could see my parents as scared children, I couldn't even relate to what they did to me.
Right.
I'm
Right.
grateful that whatever it is that they did give me and whatever it is that I have that didn't come from them, that I was able to break the chain.
Yes. And I love that because you are right in that when you stop one generation, when one generation heals, it heals the next generation. So people that I know, there's people out there listening that are like, wow, I do this and I do that, especially when we talk about parenting and they're like, I'm a bad mom. And I'm like, you are healing. You are doing your best to get better, and your children are seeing that. And in that, you are breaking the chain and breaking the cycle, because you're right. And if you went back, your grandparents were probably had it rough. I mean, it's so cyclical and it's so generational. And your grandkids, I don't know if you do a lot of podcasting, do they hear your story and everything, or no?
Not yet, but they're going to because
They will.
they won't be able to miss it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And you're going to leave a legacy for them, because they're going to be hearing that, and they're going to be that generation that doesn't put doesn't isn't harmed by it. And that's amazing.
Well, I think that what's important, in the 12-step programs, you find people that are have a quest. They're looking for answers. They want things to be different. They're looking for language that has meaning to them. And I know that my experience is not relevant to every person, but if I tell you the kinds of secrets that people tell me when I do an in-person presentation, it's almost always there's some alcoholic parent, but people talk to me about suicide. They talk to me about a disabled sibling. They talk about an ancestor who was in a mental institution. They talk about bankruptcy. I mean, all of these things are heavy secrets that we don't discuss over the dinner table, but that create this weight in people's, not to your point, not only in their minds, in their physical bodies, breaks down
Hmm.
your immune system. um, I think that what's important today, though, Tammy, is something like what you're doing, is bringing to people's attention the fact that these things do happen. It's not over because I watched the black and white film with the birds and bees pollinating. That was a different time. We could laugh about that, but it's still happening. And the most amazing thing about child sexual abuse, from my perspective, is that the vast majority of people do not report it.
Hmm.
So, because it goes unreported, the statistics that we have are way under the actual amount that's happening. And how do we keep our kids safe? Well, number one, we can't be afraid to talk about this. It can't be
Hmm.
a taboo subject. Because as long as we're afraid to talk about it, we're not educating our kids or the new parents.
Right. And as a child, like as a child with me, like I knew both of my parents drank. I knew that it was violent when, they had a lice epidemic at the school, and they were like, what are those big welts on your head, when they checked everybody's heads. And I was like, oh, that's how my mom brushes my hair, because she said it doesn't leave a mark. Like even then, like, you know what I mean? I mean, but I thought I was the only one.
Mhm.
And I think so many kids are in that. You think that I know this isn't how it's supposed to be, but I must be the only one. And because of that, you don't have this peer group. You don't have the support. I actually, when I was teaching first grade, I started a program called the Magic Mailbox. And they were first graders, but they could draw anything, they could write anything, they could have their brother write a question, and we put it in the Magic Mailbox anonymously. And every day when we took out our coats or whatever we were doing, we would go through the questions and talk about the pictures. And what I started doing is feeding the mailbox with questions I know they wanted to ask but didn't have the guts. So you could see the kids like, oh my God, I know that's me. And that's how I kind of figured out who was having but then they would look around and they would connect. And it was like they started their own little peer groups of support, because they knew what each other needed by trying to guess who put the questions in the magic mailbox. But,
Okay.
it was really enlightening. And I mean, I had a little girl, she was 20, 14 years later, and she Facebooked me and she said, Miss V, why aren't you teaching? And I was like, she's like, that's crazy. And then she said, I just want to let you know, if it wasn't for you in the magic mailbox, I don't know where I'd be today.
Oh, oh, see, that's what it's all about, isn't it?
So it was just getting these kids to feel that they're not alone, that they can go to someone and that someone listens to them. And I think
Well, I
that's a
think
huge
that
message.
that's an ageless need. We all need community.
Hmm.
And one of the nicest side effects of me getting out and speaking and the book coming out is that there is a community. The more you share, the more you find people who are open, think um, in a healing way, want to know more, ask questions. I love that when I'm finished talking, how many questions come out of the audience.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Absolutely.
yeah, that shows me that one of the women asked a question this week. Is like really surprised the first time I ever heard it. Um, she said that she's a grandmother and she told her grandchild, "Let's do this surprise for mommy's birthday. Let's, but don't tell her. You can't tell her. You can't tell her." And she said that her son-in-law came up to her afterwards and said that was a very nice thing you tried to do, but we teach our children not to keep secrets. And if somebody says to you, don't tell, don't tell, don't tell, you have the right to come to us and tell us because there's not everybody that you can trust out there. And she said, I was reprimanded by my son-in-law for trying to do something nice. And I said, you know, parenting is different today.
Mm-hmm.
People are aware of predators, and it doesn't only have to be a family member. It can be a coach or a clergy or a babysitter or the next door neighbor. And we want to teach children there's a difference between a safe little secret like a birthday, and there's a difference when somebody says to you, don't tell, don't tell, don't tell.
If it doesn't feel right, if something doesn't feel, and teach them, I think we need to go back to and start telling kids and to listen to their instinct. Their
Mhm.
instinct is so stifled now. You know, if they don't want to hug Uncle Johnny,
They
there
don't
could be a
have to.
reason, and they don't have to hug
You
Uncle
don't have to
Johnny.
kiss it. Right, exactly. But this is all part of, like, you're an educator, so you know this is all about getting the word out there. And it's all about building a community. We may not have the same story. We may not have the same last name, but we do. Um, but we have so much in common in our humanity that we are the good news. We are the
Right.
things that are making a difference. And I think that if you ask me like what the bottom line of this writing project, and it was huge, um, I think that what happened to me between the beatings and the sexual abuse and the neglect and my parents' dynamic, which was not a healthy place to grow up in, even if they never touched us, um, I needed to make sense out of what happened to me. And I was too young as a child to figure it out. So all of this work that I've done has allowed me to give meaning and purpose to what happened to me. It was not a waste. It was not for nothing. I can make a difference in somebody else's life. And that's what I encourage people to do in their sharing.
Oh, yeah, because I know there's people out there right now that are going to go out and are going to tell something or say something or share their story, just if nothing else to get it off their chest, but to help someone else.
Mhm.
And I have people that are like, well, I don't want to say anything because of this. And I'm like, if you don't do it for you, do it for your family. Do it to protect the next person or to help, help the next person know that they're not alone. So, oh, I love you. I love your message. Love it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So if you had to give, well, first of all, I know you do jazzercise. Do you take open questions in your community, the family secret keepers? Is that open to everybody or how is that work?
Well, right now, the way that it's set up is online on my website,
Okay.
the anonymous postcard and the checklist. But when I do a speaking engagement, I take questions from every question, whatever it is. No dumb questions, all good questions. If they make me think, that's good too. If I need to find an answer, I do. But generally, I'm able to offer. And in the back of my book, I have some resources so that people who are struggling will have a direction, places that I found particularly helpful.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah. So I'm curious to look at the family secret keepers. I think that's a brilliant idea just of letting people get things off their chest and kind of like I said, it's like the adult version of the magic mailbox. I love it though. So, if you had to give the audience, listeners, one tip or trick or your biggest overall picture of what they can do if they're feeling like they're still kind of saddled with some of this stuff, what would you say it would be?
Well, I think that the hardest part for me was being impatient. I kept waiting for things to be different, and I thought I divorced my first husband. My life was going to be brand new. I thought that when I left home, all my problems were gone. Um, it's taken me a long time. And I am grateful for the journey because it gave me an opportunity to have three children who became my family, who I loved and was so grateful to have a different kind of family life with them. It's given me the opportunity to go back to school and earn a couple of degrees. It's given me the opportunity to have a career. All of that happened between the abuse and the book. So I guess the hardest part for me was wanting things to happen quickly,
Mhm.
and life happens in its own pace. It really does.
Yep. I always say it's his timing, not ours.
Yes.
And also, you have to remember, like, you went through decades of abuse. People that, and so if people are in their 50s or 60s, and I'm 56, and I went through decades. It takes a minute. It's not like you blink your eyes and do a couple positive affirmations and all the shame, the guilt, the hurt, all of that has to be done. But I can tell you, and for everybody out there listening, I've said it a million times, every second, every dime, every minute that you spend moving forward, reading a book, listening to an article, do like you said, Babs, you said you do everything. Every seminar, everything that you
Self-help
do.
junkie. Yes.
Yeah, a self-help junkie, it's not wasted. Not 1 second of it is wasted. Because if you don't use it for yourself, first of all the information's still going into your subconscious memory or programming. So even if you go, yeah, I kind of thought about that, you're thinking about it while you're sleeping, even though you don't know it, if it's going to help you, because we only take in the things that we need right now. Like as we're helping, those are the things that are going to stick with us. But every single second you spend is worth it. So thank you for pointing that out with all the seminars, because some people go, I just feel like I'm doing everything. But I'm going to add, well, first of all, I'm going to say thank you so much for coming. And I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. And I appreciate the work you're doing.
Yeah, I think it's great what you're doing. But I do want to add one thing, and you can back me up with this if you agree, is that all the books, all the reading, all of that is great, but you have to put something into action. You have to actually do the work. If you read a book on inner child work, that's great, but you actually have to journal and you have to write and you have to actually go through the process. Or would
You
you
know,
agree?
yes, and I've been called a human doing instead of a human being, so I'm a very, very active human. But when I would read a book that was like a workbook or a self-help book, I did all of the homework.
Mhm. Yep.
That's just who I am. But I had a good memory of school. I really liked getting to school because it took me away from my home.
Yep.
So I mean, I have a good relationship with learning.
Yep. That's great. Yeah, I have people that take my course, and I have an 8 week self-guided course where they can ask questions and everything. And it's 8 weeks. It's an eight, it, it's a while, it's a process. And I have people I'll see buy it and then they go through it in one day. They read all the like whatever. And I'm like, no, 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 no. It's 8 weeks. Each week has journal prompts and guided meditations and articles. And it's an 8 week process. And I just want to go, you got to do it. You got to do it. Or else it's just shelf help. And that's what a coach of mine used to call it, shelf help.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, thank you so, 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 so very much. And I really, like, again, I'm going to reiterate this. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. And for anybody who's listening who knows of someone who could benefit from the book or the um, website, please follow up with me. I'll be glad to help you find what I'm doing.
Absolutely. And we're going to put all of this in the show notes, and I'll have the link to your book because you said it comes out June 12th.
17.
17th. So I'll probably post this right about the day it comes out so you can incorporate it into your launch.
Thank you.
So I'll send out an email that day and get that book jump started. So congratulations on your book.
Thank you.
And yeah, and for everybody else out there listening, you heard it again. It doesn't matter if it's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, or even 80 years old almost. It's never, never, never too late to become the person that you wanted to be and let go of all the stuff that is holding you back and making you unhappy. So I say go for it. I love you guys and see you next week.